Mama's in the living room watching Judge Judy. I'm in the kitchen eating leftover sushi, and she yells, "Oh, girl, you gotta hear this one." A man was arrested for running a theme park, and when they said, "Where's your license?" he said, "My dog ate it." Oh, you can't make this shit up. Sometimes I wonder if life's just one big cosmic joke. It's like she's on a Reddit, reading r/funny lawsuits, yelling from the couch. As she sips on a Prosecco, makes fun of all the weirdos, and then I hear her shout. It's like she's on a Reddit, reading r/funny lawsuits, yelling from the couch. As she sips on her Prosecco, makes fun of all the weirdos, and then I hear her shout, "Girl, you gotta hear this one." Mama loves to laugh at how absurd life is, says it's all a comedy and I'm her audience. And I love the way she makes fun of the world. She said, "You'll never guess who's with their girlfriend. It was a man who didn't get us out of the bed. He said, I've been through hell and now I need some help. You just can't make this shit up. You just can't make this shit up." Sometimes I wonder if life's just one big cosmic joke. It's like she's on a Reddit, reading r/funny lawsuits, yelling from the couch. As she sips on a Prosecco, makes fun of all the weirdos, and then I hear her shout. It's like she's on a Reddit, reading r/funny lawsuits, yelling from the couch. As she sips on a Prosecco, makes fun of all the weirdos, and then I hear her shout, "Girl, you gotta hear this one."
Hey y'all, it is Squid. Welcome back to the channel. It's been a whole hour. Oh my god, how are you guys? It's been so long. Anyway, thanks Heidi for doing all your modly mod stuff. I appreciate you, and I did redirect, so I thank everybody who came over here, hit the like button, and are going to join us for this session. I did send Spawn a link. He is having the week from weird with all of his sleep schedule is so damn weird. He streamed at like 9 o'clock my time last night, which was what, like 4 a.m. over to across the pond. So he's having some weird sleep schedule issues. He was going to go take a nap. So he said if he was up, he would come and join us. And if he was sleeping, obviously not. So luckily this is the stream I can do by myself. You know, I'm kind of okay with holding down the fort. But hey Cynthia, it is good to see you. How have you been? Janet, I hope you're still hanging out. I get to chat this time. Yay! And Kasha, I have documents to send you about Levy County property tax thing for LP. You can either send them to me on Facebook, Discord, email, however, wherever you need to send them. Roy, how are you doing? Give your wife a big old hug from me. Amos girls, always good to see you. Nick, hello again. How are you? The redirect didn't land though. Of course it didn't. YouTube is YouTube. YouTube is YouTubing seriously hard this week. Like, I can't even redirect to myself this week. I don't know. I should have double checked it before, because I put it in before the stream started, and sometimes that's half the problem is something gets hinky. Hey, fly on the wall. How are you? Or sweet fly. I know who you are, sweet fly. Damn name changes. All right, we are going to get straight into this NTSB hearing. We are going to pick up exactly where we left off last time. So for any of you that weren't here last time, I know it's kind of the same crew that hangs out with me every time. I had almost 300 people in my last stream, and now we have a total of 10. So like, of course, you know, we don't get the, I know these don't get the same level of entertainment and drama as the drama streams, but like it did send you this stream at the end of the last one. Okay, so the redirect did work for some people. Well, you know, at least, yeah, 50-50 probably. We're going to get straight into this. This is 2 hours and 53 minutes into day 2. Panel 3, which is a lot of FAA individuals talking about ATC, but also individuals from the American Airlines. So we have, let's just go over panel 3 really quick. Panel 3 is, and I'm looking in the witness list. Panel 3 is training, guidance, and procedures applicable to DCA air traffic control. Clark Allen, operations manager at DCA, ATCT, FAA from Washington. Brian Lehman, air traffic manager, PCT Tracon. I'm not sure what exactly all those mean. Nick Fuller, acting, reading is hard, y'all. Acting Deputy Chief Operating Officer of ATO. Eric Silverman. This is the guy whose face you have to watch. ATC Airfield Operations Manager for DC, Philly, New York, Boston, and the New England region for American Airlines. He is out of Philadelphia. I apologize if I can't remember the individual. I know her when she's in here, but these are some of her coworkers and bosses and former bosses. I'm just going to call her Mandy because that's what she goes by. Mandy Chendi, Traffic Management Officer for the Washington District of the FAA. You have Kenneth Allendorfer, PhD, Manager, Human Systems Integration Branch for the FAA out of Atlantic City. You have James Jarvis, an ATC specialist for the FAA Eastern Service Area Quality Control Group out of College Park, Georgia. And then you have Chief Warrant Officer David Van Vechten, a former standardization instructor pilot for the Army Aviation Brigade out of DC. And you have Rick Dressler, Aviation Site Manager, MedStar Transport out of Washington, DC. So those are our individuals for today. Hold on, baby. Hold on. We are going to get this started, and then I'm going to help her get through this level before she throws a hissy fit on me.
Why is it that they choose that mitigation over others? That seems to be their favorite.
Oh, and where we left off was them talking very technical about landing patterns, who gets to decide who lands first, how they decide who lands where, things that are over my head, even though I worked in both military and civilian aviation. Way over my head. And when you're listening to this, take it with a grain of salt. You're not going to understand everything that you're talking about. However, remember when you are flying on an airline and your flight is delayed, remember everything that it takes to land an aircraft safely and all the communication. And I did, Chat GPT told me 45,000 individuals work for the FAA in 2025.
Mitigation.
Because with that mitigation, you can continue to the arrivals and departures. If you utilize another mitigation, something's going to back up.
Give me an example of two. Compare the two.
If you just slowed aircraft on final, then the volume of arrivals is just going to build up onto Potomac, and the volume of arrivals is now extended out beyond what it was ever going to be.
So how does offloading to 3-3 build space? Can you just kind of tell us how that works?
Yeah, so at approximately the Wilson Bridge, aircraft begin circling out wider to then turn final for runway 33. So as they're conducting that maneuver, it builds more space in between the previous arrival. And while they're doing that, you're able to have another aircraft on position on runway 1 And whenever the 3-3 arrival lands and rolls through the runway intersection, you don't have to wait for that plane to exit the runway like you would if they landed on runway 1. So you can immediately say clear for takeoff and continue working.
Okay. When we were on site conducting interviews, we heard the term repeatedly, we just make it work. And we heard this from air traffic controllers, we heard it from air traffic control staff, and we heard it even from pilots operating in and around the airport. That term turned up in many of our interviews. And what does that term mean to you? When you're saying that, what are you saying?
As far as a controller perspective and my own personal perspective, is making it work is utilizing all available tools to you to compensate for the compacted volume, whether it's utilizing off runways. I previously, when I was current on position, I would, if I had aircraft in the block holding short of a runway, and I knew I needed to get the departure out, I would tell them there, prepare for an immediate departure after the next arrival.
And how often do you think you're in this mode of operation where we just have to make it work? Is it a daily thing that exists at that facility throughout days, or is it something that just happens occasionally?
Every damn day.
Pre-accident, it was routine.
And how do you believe that affects the facility's safety culture as a whole, or impacts the safety culture if you're operating routinely in a we just got to make it work environment?
Hello. Mama.
It can be taxing on a person, constantly have to give or push in order to efficiently move traffic.
Okay. We noted that each controller we spoke to, when asked if they felt pressure to offload to runway 33 when they had traffic building up like that or needed to make a hole for departures, none of them believed that they felt pressure to utilize that. However, all of them were doing it routinely in order to make it work. So in that mode of operation, something that was kind of communicated to us, and you can tell me your feel on this, but essentially the controller, the pilot, everybody had to be 100% all the time because of the make it work. Everything came with an exception or an addendum. Every clearance was keep your engine spooled up, be ready to go. Your number one traffic 2-mile final. Then they're telling the traffic 2-mile final, traffic will be departing ahead of you, blah, blah, blah. When they land, it's no delay on the runway. Traffic is this. That is a routine thing. We listen to a lot of communication from the facility.
And I apologize. While I am doing this, I am double duty. I have 2 full loads of laundry that need to be folded. So I have the basket here and a basket here. So if you see me like doing some weird shit underneath my desk, I am folding laundry, and I just don't want any laundry to appear on screen, if you know what I mean. So it's I don't know how that happens, but I was sitting there with the window up, but it didn't start when Squid went live. It happens all the time. And I'm just kind of listening to this because this makes me want to beat my head against a wall in the sense of how on earth do you operate by just making it work? Do you have just make it work in your standard operating procedures? If you are just making it work, there is a resource missing, whether that be equipment, which honestly, that's probably half the battle, which I understand is out of their control. That is in the process of being fixed. Hey, King Bob, how are you? In the sense of there's a plan. Love or hate Trump, don't care. However, first time in my life, I've repeated it multiple times. First time in my life that someone has said they were going to do something and actually wrote down a plan. Instead of just kept saying, yeah, we're going to get to it. Yeah, we're going to get to it. Sean Duffy, the current Department of Transportation Secretary, actually has a plan. Whether it is a good plan or not, completely up for debate, but it is better than what 99.999% of the rest of the administrations in my life have done, which is absolutely nothing. Hi, David, how are you? And I'm sorry if the names are screwing me up. So if you are like, if I know your name, because there's a few Davids who are in here. So if I know your name, and I'm sorry if I'm looking at your name like I don't know you, I apologize. And if you are new here, welcome. So the names are throwing me off a little bit. But like I said, not to make this uber political, but love or hate Trump for the first time in my lifetime, and I will be 40 years old next month. There is a plan to fix the equipment of air traffic control. But when I hear just make it work, something's not right. Like, if I'm a boss and I hear, well, we're just making it work, I'm going to talk to each of my employees and I'm going to be like, oh, David Nelson. Yeah. Hey, how are you? Like, yeah, I know you. I'm going to tell, what's the problem? What do you mean by just making it work? How long have you felt like this? Does everybody else feel like this? And do you feel like this is impacting your stress levels, your safety, your performance of your job? I'm going to try to get to the bottom of it because something's not right. And remember, this is a life or death business. This is not just a pass the buck. Like, this is a life or death business. You screw up as an air traffic controller, people die.
So is that a correct categorization that it's kind of a mode where everybody has to be 100% all the time for that to continue to work correctly?
So the controllers at DCA are going to provide a safe and efficient service. They
Apparently
are
not.
a very hardworking group, and they are going to use all available tools to expedite the flow of traffic in a safe manner.
Okay. Do you believe that the we just make it work mentality has been normalized at DCA Airport Traffic Control Tower?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Why?
And we are watching at 1.35 speed. So when he takes these pauses, and these are long pauses at 1.35 speed, remember just how long these pauses are in real time. And David, Newark Airport was shifted to Philadelphia instead of New York City just before Biden left. Philadelphia wasn't prepared for the increased load, and Newark is next to New York City. Yeah, Newark had problems with their air traffic control, and they're actually shutting down. Their system just shutting down. You think I had problems with my computer? Like, imagine your monitor as an air traffic controller just losing power. So they had that happen twice within, I think, 2 to 3 weeks. So it's a big deal. It's like sounds to me like plans for the one runway to use the two, even though it conflicts with the helo. Yeah, and I don't understand how you operate an airport this big and only use one runway. Like, how do you operate an air traffic system this big and only use one runway? I just take your video stream down, leave audio up so you can talk and fold your laundry to your heart's content. Yeah, I'm so bad about that sometimes, but I will. Looks like someone is really tired. It looks like people are sick of answering questions and they're really uncomfortable with answering these questions because honestly, these are not hard questions to answer as far as the knowledge. But these are hard questions some of these questions are hard to answer as far as admitting that your people might be hardworking, but you can be hardworking and still suck at your job. You can be a lazy mofo and be really great at your job. The two aren't mutually exclusive. So when he says they're a hardworking group, that still doesn't mean they're the best group. Just saying. The two runways cross. Yeah, we've seen the layout, but I understand I understand using one main runway, but when you have to divert, like acting like they never divert planes or they're never gonna have to divert planes is a weird mentality to have. And that hearing more about this Clark Allen guy talk, it's that they don't ever want to divert aircraft. And I think it's because of that helo route. But at the same time, like, you can't operate an aircraft or an airport that big and expect never have to divert an airline or an aircraft to that other runway. It's just never going to happen because you have instances where somebody had technical issues. They were trying to take off and they had technical issues and couldn't. They had to go back to the gate. That takes time. You got an inbound plane. It just, the time that they need to get off the runway is not quick enough. So they have this, which is what happened here. They had to divert. But to act like you never have to divert and to tell this, well, we expect never have to, you're in DC. You're operating with one runway and you're expecting never have to divert to that second runway. It's very, there's a disconnect here that I just can't get around. So, yeah. And DCA is very poorly located. Yeah. Whoever built this airport, I understand DC has a lot of water to deal with, a lot of restricted airspace based on government buildings, but whoever decided to put this airport right here is not the bright. Oh, she seems really tired. She is, but she's not. And there is so much traffic need the two running all the time by the sound of it. Yeah, I mean, I can see not having both running because obviously they cross. You have to, that would be another logistical thing to work out to make sure you don't have two aircraft that are literally going to go boom. However, that helo route, my brain goes, they don't like to divert because of that helo route, because they don't ever want this to happen. That helo route, if that helo route wasn't there, I think that they would have no problem diverting and have not a second thought about it. Because that's what every other airport does. They divert to multiple runways because that's what having multiple runways are there for. But whoever built this airport right here is not the brightest. Like, I mean, I understand it was a long time ago and they might not have expected things to get this big, but like Cincinnati's airport, they ran out of real estate in Ohio, so they put the greater Cincinnati airport in Kentucky. So whenever you fly into Cincinnati, you are not in Ohio, by the way. Just to, if you just a little word of wisdom there. You are not in Ohio if you fly into Cincinnati's airport. They ran out of real estate, so they asked Kentucky if they could put it in Kentucky, right across the river. So you're close to Ohio, you're just not there. I feel like something should have been done, like it should have been put in Virginia or something. FDR approved the location in 1938. There's stuff with that. 38 was when aviation was starting to become big, right before World War II. Just, yeah. Hey again, my eyes are so cross-eyed mood. I think my pillow's crazy for me. I need to cuddle right now. Good night. Good night, Malin. I know it's late by you, so you have a good night. And thanks, David, for that info. I wasn't sure who approved it. All right. Hey, Roy, I lived in both two locations in Ohio. I lived in Cincinnati when I was a kid. I was at Cincinnati from like 2nd to 4th grade, and then another place in BFE, Ohio for middle school and some high school, and Kentucky for part of high school. So like, don't knock it till you try it. I loved Kentucky. Kentucky was a lot of fun. I just feel like there is so much shit and there's too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak.
I mean, there's various factors with the compacted demand that occurs, whether when weather gets involved, when spacing isn't being given, when there's miles in trail requested on departures, it creates a volume backup on ground. Like I testified yesterday, there's a limited real estate for the airport and where to put aircraft, and that can back up very easily. So being a high volume, high complex airport with not a lot of real estate, you have to keep things moving in order to provide a safe and efficient service.
Mr. Fuller.
I think the characterization of we just make it work is not to say that it's pressure based on the airport. Controllers are public servants, and most of the controllers that I know take pride in making sure everyone gets out to their destination or at their on their flight on time safely. And so
Yeah, I'd hate it there too. That's because it's Fort Knox and it sucks. But here's the question. Is the gold there? Bought a horse property in Nonsuch, Kentucky, just south of Lexington. I lived in Georgetown, which is just north of Lexington. I lived by Georgetown College.
whether it's we've got a lot of demand or a piece of equipment out or 5 people called in sick for the shift or there's a thunderstorm to the west of the field, we just make it work means we're going to get you where you're going as safely as possible. It's not to say that we are going to work in a constrained environment. Our job is to get people where they're going.
I don't believe that for a second. I believe that is the politically correct version of what they think that's supposed to mean, but that's not. It wasn't there in 82 or in 83.
And so when we say we'll just make it work, it's
like
just give me the airplane, I'll make it work.
Okay.
So, Mr. Allen.
Yeah, I'm going to follow up on that. What does everyone else think? We just make it work. The people who actually work in the tower. What does that mean?
She has my face. This is like, I mean, she's got a little bit of a Karen side in her, but like, what does that mean to y'all? Like, I want to hear, because I believe that was a politically correct, political FAA higher up boss version. That's not the in the trenches E4 mafia version. Let's put it that way. If you know, you know. Hey, King Paco, I saw you on the last stream. I'm sorry to say hi to you. Are you still addicted to your Switch? She's even given her. I believe this right here is her trying to cover up that that cynical smile and that smart ass grin she had. Like, I don't want to hear that from you. I want to hear that from everybody else. Yeah, she just called BS. She just threw her BS flag, and she's trying to when you cover your mouth because you don't want anybody to see your expression, because look at 5 seconds before that.
I'm going to follow up on that. What does everyone else think? We just make it work. The people who actually work in the tower. What does that mean?
The people who actually work in the tower.
We have similar issues that DCA Tower has. We have many non-standard tools that we use in order to be able to bring a significant amount of airplanes into DCA. One of them is nicknamed a trombone. They come off of one of our feeds. We take them down like this, then take them back up the same way that they came. We trombone them in order to build in space. Not too many facilities do such a thing. There's a second one called cross feeding that we do every day. Tromboning is not as much, but it's probably done once a day or twice a day. So these are non-standard air traffic maneuvers that we do on a daily basis to make it work. And I agree with Nick. We take pride in it.
I don't think he knows what he did.
I will say that at a certain point, it's too much.
Yes. I think an issue is we have efficiency, being challenged with safety, and it's a fine line, and that demand is pretty high. The controllers do a remarkable job there, but it's at a pretty high threshold right now.
All right. So it's pertaining to the making it work spirit. There are tons of constraints in the NAS, and depending on what's going on, we do our best, of course, to not only safely move traffic, but do it efficiently. So at the tower, in a way, they've built the culture with making it work, right? If you go to another tower, they may call it something else, but even at facilities, at the center, they will talk about the constraints they have working next to another facility, New York Center, of the fact that they have to do things where they have to sometimes compensate.
You almost said too much.
Work that they believe should be done by New York Center. So I believe each facility is sort of different in what they do to move traffic and just get flights or get passengers to their destinations.
So I think I need to differentiate here because I think that we might be mixing up apples and oranges when we talk about we just make it work from the go get them initiative and spirit mode. I agree. Air traffic controllers are very much that type of person, regardless across the NAS. That's always been my experience. This is a little different. This is we just make it work because we don't have another choice. There is airplanes coming, and everything was related to the capacity, the demand, or the amount of traffic that was coming in and having to meet that demand. And there was, this is actually a good lead in actually to Mr. Lehman. Can you explain to me what our airport arrival rate is?
It is the arrival rate to a runway, specifically, in this case, it would be 1 and 19 at DCA. And it is how many arrivals we can land in an hour. And
Okay.
there is a formula in our 7210.3. It's 10-7-4 and 10-7-5. And it speaks directly of how you're supposed to address issues and what the math formula is for coming up with an arrival rate.
Okay, so Mr. Fuller, we've attempted to get this information a number of times, and maybe there's a disconnect in how we're communicating the request. However, we did receive a partially responsive response, which was we were provided the actual arrival rates that were in place at the time of the event, what their established arrival rates were. And just to bounce back to Mr. Lehman, do you recall how long those arrival rates have been in place leading up to the time of the accident?
What I know for a fact is I've been the ATM since February of 2022. They have been in that long. They were in when I took over. I do not know the last time they were reviewed.
Okay, so my question, Mr. Fuller, is do we know yet when the last time those rates were established prior to the event?
So I think just to clarify, those rates were established in 2014 is best of knowledge I can find. I was
Okay.
not in this position at that time, so I don't have any of those relevant documents.
Okay,
I may actually be your best bet to answer the question as far as your arrival rates are concerned for DCA.
great, absolutely.
And doing so because I've been CMO since 2017. Okay. So the last review we did for DCA as far as the rates were, well, when I say last review, we do the review every year.
Okay.
However, the last change we made to the rates for DCA were in 2019, where the rates in the node configuration were actually raised. When you go on the OIS page, you see, oh, okay. Well, that was the last time we made the change.
Okay, are you the person that
You see
conducts the
that?
annual review? Is it
That was the last time we made the OIS page. You see,
What is he telling her not to talk about? What is he telling her not to talk about? When you go on, and I'm sorry, I freeze framed her with a blurry face, and I apologize to her if she ever sees this because I have a really bad habit of that. But what is he telling her not to talk about? I want to know what she had to say.
oh, okay. Well, that was the last time we made the change.
okay? Are you the person that conducts the annual review? Is it a group of people? Does it go through several channels? That review, annual review.
Well, there's myself in collaboration, of course, with NATCA and others within the TRACON, and of course, in discussions too with the tower.
I believe the 7210 states in there that the TRACON sets the arrival rate. Does that sound like a right
That's
statement out of there? So essentially, they're the driving force in setting the arrival rate. Mr. Lehman, in May of 2023, you drafted a memo to the DDSO with a request to reduce the arrival rate, the airport arrival rate into DCA. Can you explain to me how you went through that process, who you forwarded it to, and what response you received to that request?
Yes, well, in 2022, we realized that there was a lot of compacted demand at certain times of the day, 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning, 5:30 to 6:30 in the evening. That's an example. I went to my AGM and I was speaking to him about how to deal with this issue. And he stated to me that it was our job as FAA to regulate the amount of traffic that went in there. And I needed to get into the 7210, read those two, 10-7-4 and 10-7-5, which there's not a lot in there. It's a page worth or two. And make the request to change the arrival rate if I thought that's what should happen. So we followed the math. There's a table in 10-7-5, and we followed the 130 knots with final approach speed. And we followed the 4 mile final because when we're in compacted demand, that's what we were getting. And we came up with an arrival rate that 32 is where you would sit without any of, there's 9 factors that you have to look at to see if then you would go below 32 or possibly go above 32. I can't tell you. But we looked at those 9 factors and decided that in a south operation, we needed to go lower than 28. I mean, lower than 32. We went to 28 And so we put that in. And then in the north operation, we went to 32, both of them going down 4 operations for 4 arrivals an hour. And I put that in a memo and I sent it to my district. Although it says in the 7210, I'm supposed to collaborate with the deputy director of systems operations. It is protocol that I would go to my boss first. And I sent it to my boss. And about 10 days later, she got back to all of us, including Clark. We were on a telcon and told us that we were not going to go in that direction.
Did they say why?
They brought up the reauthorization bill. That was happening at the time. She said it was not a good time to address this. That is the main tenets of what she got back to us. And we weren't going in this direction at this time.
Get her ass in here.
Do you know if the request ever made it to the deputy director of system operations?
I do not. I do know that I had an email from her saying that she was going to speak to the deputy director of systems operations and the traffic management officer, but I do not know if she ever had those conversations.
Mr. Fuller, do they document a decision on a request such as that through written documentation of some sort, or is it acceptable to, like, let's say, make a phone call, we reviewed your request and we're not doing this?
No, if they follow the process as it's defined in the 7210 and send a written request to the DDSO, a written response will be provided. In this particular case, and again, speaking because I was not in this position at that time, I could not find any records and no emails could be produced that showed that that information was sent to the DDSO for the Eastern Service Area.
Yeah, the memo has his name on the 2 line, but we couldn't verify that either. We were trying in every way that we could. So you followed.
Mr. Soper, I think Ms. Chendi has something to add.
So I was made aware of that memo.
Okay.
The memo did not make it to the DDSO. However, the information that was provided on the memo, we got that information, and from it, we realized there were a few things. Now, there are secondary runways or other runways there, but from that memo, we also realized that runway 33 was not being utilized. Now, there's a talk of change in fleet and the North Terminal being an issue or a hindrance now. After I personally read the memo, we reached out to the airlines regarding the use of runway 33 because that's one of the things that was brought up. And of course, that is capacity that's not being used. In reaching out to the airlines, they then made a review and realized they could actually utilize runway 33. And they just needed to go through training. That was done. And we got increased use of runway 33. One of the things that was mentioned that was not being used in the memo, if that makes sense.
Okay, when you say using 33, you're soliciting them to request the use of 33, or accepting it if they're set up to it.
So, one thing that was brought up in the memo is the fact that runway 33 was not being utilized. Now, it is an available runway. It is capacity to be used, and so we reached out to the airlines, and the airlines, of course, if we have capacity, let's use it.
Okay, I think
Of
I
course,
understand where you're.
because the problem with the airlines is they want to make money, and they have the people willing to buy tickets and use the capacity. And it's always more. And I understand the pressure that the FAA is under from the airlines of, if you have this capacity, let's use it. Because at the time that I worked for the airline, if there wasn't an ass in every seat, the airline lost money. And if the airline lost money, that's why plane tickets sometimes are so damn expensive. That's why, okay. So think about back in the mid to early 2000s, how Southwest was only like $69 when all other flights were like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. It's because Southwest hedged their fuel for years. You notice when all of a sudden Southwest took that 69 to like $200 to $300 jump. It's when their fuel hedging contracts ran out. If for them, they were still making money. For every other airline, fuel was so expensive that if you didn't put an ass in every fucking seat, you didn't make any money. So in order to break even and even make a profit, you needed to get more flights, more people. So if you had the capacity, you had to, because the airlines were a losing business for a long time. That's why Air Trash and, or that's why Continental and United merged. That's why Air Trash and Southwest merged. That's why Midwest almost collapsed and was bought by Frontier, or not Frontier, but Republic. And then Frontier was bought by Republic because all these freaking pilots were just was the way to the only way to make money, and instead of all these airlines failing, somebody had to come in and do all the shit. So I understand that the pressure the FAA is under, but at a certain point, you got to say, fuck y'all and do your damn jobs.
You're going now. So, Mr. Allen, did you see, were you seeing an uptick in that? Were they starting to utilize 3.3 more in order to improve capacity?
There was outreach to the airlines to communicate with the pilot workforce to run the numbers for 3.3 as you were, before you departed your airport destined for DCA or in flight, however that goes for them, just to have it as an option should they want to request it or that the tower requested them to use 3.3.
Okay. Did you conduct any training or briefing items within the tower to prepare people to attempt to start trying to utilize 3.3 to manage the arrival rate and capacity?
3.3 was already being utilized.
Okay.
They were proficient.
Okay.
If I may add, it was actually the fact that you had the airlines not using it when the request was made. They just chose to utilize runway 1. So the outreach opened things up for them to use it, if that helps.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Lehman, we'll move to another subject. Time-based flow management, often referred to as metering. Can you provide a brief explanation as to what that is?
Honestly, it is a concept that is used at multiple other Core 30 airports. It has not been used at DCA or Dulles or Baltimore. Potomac is ready to use it, has always been ready to use it. It has been facilities outside of us that are not prepared to, and this is the way I understand it, and Mandy can give you more information, and Nick probably can too, but are not prepared or were not prepared in the past to be able to use the technology because of the very tight quarters of how you get to Potomac. Very small center sectors is the reason that I was given that it can't be used at DCA, Baltimore, and Dulles.
Ms. Cheney, can you expand upon that?
Okay, unfortunately, that reason was not shared with me as far as why DCA did not have TBFM at the time. But we have made the request for TBFM to be utilized, and of course, like any other program, there has been like a line or a wait, and issues that were brought up initially when we made the request for it. Sometimes it's even within the en route environment where there is some pushback with that, but that has been the case. However, we are getting TBFM and can't wait for it.
Okay, great. What is it going to do for you? What is it going to do for DCA when they get it?
All right. So the thing that keeps coming up, which we hear all the time, is the compacted demand. And what TBFM will help us do is spread the volume out. We will be able to set our timelines up where aircraft coming in from the surrounding centers into Washington Center will actually be released or coming in at a certain time where it should just be a smooth flow of traffic heading into the TRACON and for the tower. So in a way, it would work like a ground delay program. I know I'm throwing in another term.
That's okay. And so will that also, Mr. Lehman, do you think does that benefit your facility's ability to provide a more consistent miles and trail?
In theory, yes, and I'm an advocate for TBFM, so I believe it will help. We have not seen it yet, and it is supposed to come in March of 2026, but I can only say that I believe it will.
I'm glad that there's finally some traction on it actually coming in. It sounded like it was there a number of years and hadn't been able to be implemented. So good.
Oh, look, did you hear that? And I'm not sure exactly what that, they weren't supposed to have any acronyms, but here they are saying acronyms every freaking day. One of the rules was no acronyms so that people like you and me who do not work for the FAA, do not work for the NTSB, could understand this shit. But here we go. TDFM is something that I've never heard of before. Or if I have, I don't remember offhand what it is. But did you hear what the guy asking questions had said? After, I'm glad that it's finally being implemented after years and years of being told that it was going to be installed or put in. Oh, look who's finally fucking doing it. So like, once again, not to make it political, but like, look what actually, for all of you who watch this, who might hate the current administration, I understand you have your reasons. You can hate the person, totally fine. But look at all the shit that is actually being done that hasn't been done for years. So like, I understand people have their opinions and I can respect that. But on the other side of the coin, listen to what people say in government when they talk about what is being done. And like, listen to the little things like, I'm glad that's finally being done after hearing about it for years. Like,
I'm glad that there's finally some traction on it actually coming in. It sounded like it was there a number of years and hadn't been able to be implemented. So good. Mr. Silverman, another area that figures into the traffic management picture is of course the SLOT program. And while I understand this is a very protected program and highly proprietary, could you give us a very brief description of what the SLOT program is?
Yeah, so within my role at American, I don't have direct connectivity to the SLOT program. It's FAA ran through the FAA SLOT office. Essentially, it is applied to airports that have capacity constraints, so they put kind of a cap at a certain limit. But that is coordinated through our network planning team and ultimately the FAA SLOT office.
Okay, and is it a correct characterization to say that the scheduling is done in compliance with the SLOT program if there's one at an airport?
That is correct. Yes, industry is expected to follow the SLOT portfolio that is implemented.
Jeffrey, I was military. I understand that completely. However, I also have been told certain times when you're in certain situations, do not use acronyms. And they were told by the chairwoman for the NTSB for this hearing not to use acronyms. And I'm surprised she did not correct them like she has multiple other times. So it's, and I think this is where the AI comes in. And I think a lot of things will change when all this is implemented, because the AI will do it and the AI will communicate with both ATC and the airlines automatically. Although I'm not a huge fan of AI for everything, there are certain times when the AI will automatically do the communications so that there won't be a miscommunication or a missed communication. Like, oh, I forgot to send somebody the link. That's the reason they're not here. Or I forgot to send that email. Or her new thing is now just screaming because she can't stop. I love you, but stop. But I think that a communication is at the heart of a lot of issues. Communications between ATC and air and flights. Communication between the FAA and airlines themselves. The communication between airlines. So this might actually do some good.
By the FAA.
Okay, and are you familiar with the scheduling program in use by American Airlines out here at DCA specifically?
Well, can you expand on that when you say scheduling program?
Yeah, let me rephrase a little bit with where I'm going, which is we heard a lot while we were in post-accident interviews that American Airlines likes to front load and back load the schedule. So let me get the clarification on that. Mr. Allen, can you explain what that means when they say they're front loading or back loading a schedule?
Utilizing the back half of an hour and then utilizing the first half of the next hour.
And so basically what I believe what they're saying is that essentially if you look at the hours from 9 to 10 and 10 to 11 and 11 to 12, they're meeting a rate of 32, 31, 33, let's say, which is the appropriate rate. But if I were to pull the time from 9:30 to 10:30 and 10:30 to 11:30, I'll see numbers that range from 40 something all the way up to above 70. And is that a concern for air traffic control, Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Okay. Have you had to?
And Jeffrey, I do understand. Trust me, I was military. We have all the acronyms in the damn world. We have more acronyms than any other organization on the planet. However, with that being said, she should be stopping them and asking the question, what does that stand for, before they keep repeating it. Because literally she had said at the beginning of every day, do not use acronyms. Do not use acronyms. So I understand it's part of their everyday language. However, when you are told by the chairwoman of the NTSB hearing not to use acronyms, follow the damn instructions. Follow the damn instructions. And if you use the acronym and you don't know what it stands for, you need to fucking learn your job better. Sorry, that's me getting an attitude, but like, I have more acronyms that in my brain than many other people, having worked in civilian and military aviation and just been in the military in general. I got more acronyms than I know what to do with. But damn, like if I'm told not to use an acronym, I will correct myself after I use the acronym and tell someone what it is.
Discussions with anybody from American Airlines that can affect change in that area, and what have been the results of those discussions, if you have?
Previously, we've had discussions with their scheduling team that had actually came to the tower and visited on 3 separate occasions. They were able to see the operation in real time. They were in the tower. They took back a lot of feedback and data, and there was a test run of where they shifted a schedule, I believe between 8 and 10 minutes, in order to help alleviate some of the overlap of arrivals and departures.
Okay. Mr. Silverman, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on. So Mr. Allen is correct. We had a lot of focus coming out of COVID. I think everyone's aware that all airports across the NAS had a significant drop in traffic for about a year and a half. Coming out of COVID, at the same time, our regional terminal was being built. We had a working group established at DCA with the tower, with our ops folks, and also NWA to prepare for the opening of the terminal, and then also the schedule increase coming out of COVID. That schedule increase, I believe, approximately occurred in early 2022. And then, as Mr. Allen stated, we observed the operation. We brought our network planning team in, our ops performance team, the DCA tower. We actually had them up in the tower cab a few times to observe the operation. And then we made changes where we could within the FAA mandated slot program.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, up until the time, I know you're not physically working at DCA Airport Traffic Control Tower at this time, up until the time that you had left there, were they still having routine or regular events where this was occurring, where you were having that real big uptick over a certain period of time and then coming back down due to front and back loading of scheduling, or did it appear that way?
The compacted demand still occurred at around the same times. Yeah, that's all.
Okay. Mr. Lee, I know we talked when we were out there to Potomac about this very thing, and you had some information to shed some light on this as well, and an understanding, and I know it affects your facility. Can you explain to me, I know that there's been some discussion about what other places are doing, such as LaGuardia, and I think you're versed on that a little bit. If you could walk me through that.
I got it. I had to think about it for a second, but I got it.
There's a CFR 93. .123 and 125 that talks very specifically about 4 airports. One of them's LaGuardia, O'Hare, Reagan. I can't think of what the 4th one is. JFK. And so in that, we are allowed to have 60 operations an hour by CFR. So what my concern is that
for those of you who don't know, Reagan is DC. LaGuardia and JFK are New York, and O'Hare is Chicago. For those of you who are either not familiar at all or not from here.
We're not following the CFR because from 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning, and that's one of our specific examples, we may have 70 operations, even more than 70 operations, not every day, but enough of the time. So the CFR reads from 9 to 10, from 10 to 11, from 11 to 12. So industry is following what they're supposed to do. What we needed to do was regulate more. That's why I wrote the arrival rate memo, to make sure that no matter how they filed, we still only got that amount, the correct amount of airplanes into DCA.
As I understand, LaGuardia was essentially in a similar situation, and they made a change to CFR and based on how they do their scheduling. Can you speak to that at all?
Yes. I don't know how it happened, and I don't know how long ago it happened, but theirs is in 30-minute increments instead of 1-hour increments. And it's a note in the CFR So my request was, one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to change the arrival rate. I wanted to amend the CFR to mimic LaGuardia's, and I wanted TBFM. So I wanted to mimic LaGuardia's so that it had to be in 30-minute increments that we were looking at. So it'd be harder to get that many in a 30-minute increment than it would be in a 60-minute time frame.
And Ms. Chandy, because you're the TMO, I assume you're in contact with other TMOs, obviously, especially in the area, maybe in the Eastern Service area. Would that be correct?
That's correct.
Has this change that is, I shouldn't say change, but what's been implemented for LaGuardia, has that relieved them of the issue that they had there, similar to what is happening here with the capacity demand of those fluctuations of going higher than the actual CFR numbers?
I mean, at LaGuardia, you still get some time frames that you have compacted demand. However, DCA's scheduling, if the CFR was written for DCA the way it was for LaGuardia as far as how the slots were used, we certainly will have a better product at DCA.
Mr. Silverman, do you know of a reason that may not be viable?
I do not. Oh, just to clarify, reference going toward LaGuardia's model?
Whoa.
Yeah, I do not.
Okay. All right. Very well. All right.
Hold on. I have no idea what the hell just happened here. Why it went down to, here we go.
That is actually all I have for right now. So I will go ahead and pass it along to Mr. McKinney.
All right, I'm going to be focusing on the use of NVGs in the National Capital Region and the impact on air traffic control. Yesterday, we heard we established that the pilots using NVGs have some limitations inherent to the NVG technology. Field of view is restricted to 40 degrees. Color limits are monochrome, where particular colors like red, green, and white are not equally represented on the NVG display. Reduced visual acuity. Aircraft silhouettes are often difficult to discern. Depth perception using the monocular depth cues are difficult, and ground and airborne lights can appear similar. So knowing that type of limitation of the technology, Mr. Allen, and this is also from Mr. Fuller, with the letters of agreement between the military and ATC, is there any requirement for the air crews to inform ATC that they are utilizing NVGs?
So many buttons.
No.
No. Mr. Fuller, Mr. Allen, is there any FAA training available to controllers to understand human factors for pilots utilizing NVGs?
No, nothing I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware.
Okay. And is there any training at all in the FAA at all regarding NVGs for controllers, management level, or?
No, there's no training on that particular aspect. There's also no requirement for the military to notify us that they're using NVGs. There's no solicitation for us to ask. I think, I'm trying to roll back to the last time I keyed a mic. The only communication they would, or unusual operation they would communicate to us is they were doing celestial navigation or something of that nature. But as far as NVGs and what equipment they're using on the aircraft, they wouldn't tell us that.
So knowing these limitations that we listed and established yesterday, Mr. Fuller and Mr. Allen, actually any of the FAA people on board, any of the people on the panel here, do you feel that if controllers were trained and informed with the knowledge of these type of limitations that the air crews are working with, would that affect how the controllers manage the traffic if they knew the pilots were on NVGs?
Again,
I know that the FAA it's not easy for the FAA to answer these questions, but I think he's talking in hypotheticals and opinions. Do you think it's a good idea if they tell you, or you have training in how they do NVGs? So if they say certain things, you get a clue that, oh, they might be using NVGs, and to keep a closer eye on them. I think he's speaking in hypotheticals. However, I kind of like where he's going as far as, I think he's looking at part of the report that will be what can be done to keep this from happening again. Training for ATC on the use of NVGs and pilot limitations with NVGs. Protocol where the Army will have to notify air traffic control when they are using NVGs so that they can be kept closer eye on. Because it's, if you don't know a pilot's using NVGs and you assume they got full vision and they only have this, tunnel vision, so to speak, there's a safety issue there. You assume that they have their full almost 180-degree vision, and they don't. So, and hey guys, how are you? Oh, nice. I like it. Oh my God, nice name. Nice name. So I feel like he's asking hypotheticals more for what should be in the final report as recommendations for prevention and or protocol changes. But I kind of like this because this is where my brain goes. Well, should they? Well, what if they knew? Would ATC have done something different if they knew that the pilots had NVGs? Should both pilots be wearing NVGs?
Would be highly speculative of each controller. I will tell you that controllers, if they have awareness of, say, a student pilot, yes, they will take additional precautions. If they're aware of someone on a solo flight or an aircraft with one engine, they take additional precautions. But I do not want to see us have to start soliciting for what kind of equipage or asking pilots if they're wearing glasses, if they're doing NVGs. If the pilot accepts visual separation, it's incumbent upon the pilot to know those conditions in which they can safely maintain and apply visual separation. They can refuse the clearance. They can notify air traffic they lost sight of the aircraft, and we can provide positive control at that point. But I don't want a separate responsibility transferred over to air traffic controllers where they're responsible for what's going on in the cockpit.
Any other thoughts from the panel, witnesses? Okay. From an operator's point of view, Mr. Van Vechten, you've flown routes 1 and 4 quite often. And could you describe the cultural lighting along those routes?
Yes, there's a significant amount of cultural lighting on the east side of the bank by JBAB, and as you cross through the wharf. On the west side, crossing the Pentagon area, there's a substantial amount of lights. Obviously, DCA is lit up pretty well, so there's a lot of lights there. As you transition south towards Wilson Bridge, the lights kind of die off a little bit.
Okay, so in your opinion, would it be advantageous in aircrew to be not on NVGs while flying that segment of the route?
No, I don't believe so. I would always carry goggles on the healer routes. Even if I was specifically out there to log night unaided time, which is a requirement, I would still have my goggles on my helmet flipped up. So if I needed to, I could flip them down. And that would be in the case of an emergency or if I need to pick out an obstacle or something. But it is always safer to fly with goggles than without.
I think my question is more along the lines of not necessarily that you don't have them with you, but for a segment of the route, maybe it's better visually if you're not on goggles versus being on goggles because of maybe the cultural lighting.
I don't necessarily think so. The technique that is taught, like I spoke to yesterday, is to kind of look with the naked eye, kind of turning your head as you look around or under the goggles as you're flying. And that's how we look at our instruments. We kind of look under the goggles. The goggles are not pressed up directly against the eye like a lot of people think. It's away a little bit. So that is called scanning with the naked eye. So I would still fly with goggles because I can pick up aircraft obstacles at greater distances, and then I can look with the naked eye to confirm if they're a factor or not.
Okay, thank you. And this question is regarding the LOA between ATC, the Air Force, and the National Guard. This is for Mr. Fuller and Mr. Allen. Does the letter agreement make any distinctions between training flights and mission critical flights for the military?
I don't have particular knowledge of each letter of agreement, so I'll have to defer to Mr. Allen on this one.
Nope.
From my recollection, I don't believe it does.
I knew.
And if it did, would that
I knew the
warrant
answer to
different
that
levels of
one, and
priority?
I'm not even a freaking FAA or freaking aviation employee anymore, and I still knew the answer to that one.
When going through the DCA area?
What were the two types again?
Like training flights and mission critical flights.
If it was mission critical in accordance with like the .65 for like Homeland Security missions or something like that,
I would say so.
There might be a different priority established in accordance with the .65, but other than that, it would be a standard flight.
Okay, thank you.
If we're strictly speaking about the night of the accident, then mission critical and training flights would have had equal access to the airspace. If you're speaking about current day, there would be no training flights going through that airspace.
All right, understood. I'm going to transition my questioning now to VFR holding within the National Capital Region. Mr. Allen, can you describe what VFR holding is and how it's used?
There has been technique taught at TCA of 2 locations that you could hold aircraft if they were utilizing Route 4 to hold them to allow traffic to either depart or land runway 15 or 33. One of them is in the vicinity of Haynes Point, and the other is the golf balls, which is down by the water sewage plant. And there's a Navy research site there, and they have the like radar domes on top of the buildings that are very prominent.
Pax River.
Noticeable.
And the holding pattern, is that at the discretion of the pilot?
There's no defined pattern. There's no defined procedure whatsoever with it. It is merely technique.
Is there any specific guidance or rules provided to aircraft controllers when providing holding instructions, VFR holding instructions?
Can you repeat the question?
Are there any specific rules or guidance provided to air traffic controllers when providing VFR holding instructions?
Not that I'm aware of off the top of my head.
So we would, if we wanted an aircraft to hold in a specific vicinity, maybe at or below an altitude, we could do that to ensure separation from traffic, but we would not provide turns or things of that nature based on obstruction clearance, things of that nature. We wouldn't have that information available to us, and that's not I don't know the MVA or MIA in that area, but typically we wouldn't provide vectors for VFR aircraft to hold. It's at their discretion.
Mr. Allen or Mr. Fuller, can VFR holding be initiated by the pilot?
Yes, the pilot can request to hold it at any time.
What about location? Can they hold at any location that they request?
If they make a request, then we can approve it, certainly.
Is VFR holding a useful tool, or does it complicate traffic management for the controller? This is for Mr. Fuller and Mr. Allen.
I think DCA specific, I think it's twofold, and I think it's situational. Is it a single helicopter? Is it a flight of helicopters? What is your runway configuration? Which runways are you using? Where are the arrivals? Where are the departures? I think it's very dependent, and each individual controller would assess that situation as it developed.
And I would throw in, it depends, like you said, on the location. If you're requesting to hold at Haynes Point, when there's probably not a lot of traffic there. If you're requesting to hold at the Key Bridge while we're in the South Flow, it's going to be very impactful. So those are 2 totally different scenarios using the same operation.
All right. For a scenario, if a helicopter checks in, say at Cabin John, would you ever issue a expect hold clearance, like expect to hold at Haynes Point or expect to hold at Golf Balls type of clearance when they check in? If your traffic flow is such that you maybe you suspect you might have a conflict when they get down to Haynes Point?
Personally, I would not. Being that far away, a lot of things change.
I'm trying to open up the
I've never keyed a mic
preliminary report.
so I have no experience on exactly controlling traffic there.
Mr.
We
Van
can get
Vecken,
the map.
do you have a sense of how often the Army helicopters are instructed to VFR hold while operating in the Class B DCA airspace?
It doesn't happen a lot, but it has happened occasionally. I can give you a couple examples if you would like.
How about mostly on routes 1 and 4?
Routes 1 and 4 specifically, yes. Haynes Point, Golf Ball. Haynes Point less frequently, just in my experience. So the 1 or 2 times that I had to hold there, I really slowed back my airspeed because there's no good place to hold. If I executed a left-hand orbit, I'd be over Fort McNair. The right-hand orbit would be over the golf course. So I just kind of slowed back in the tidal basin there. The south by the golf balls, the common procedure for us was to pick up a right-hand orbit over the sewage treatment plant and not a left-hand orbit into the approach path of runway 1.
And is VFR holding something that's trained within the unit to be proficient at?
It's not specifically trained, but it is taught during the local area orientation. We'll go over these typical spots where we are told to hold. The other one is on Route 5 at Glebe Road.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that was mentioned earlier is if there's a formation of multiple helicopters. Is that a problem?
Specifically, that's what I was talking about at Glebe Road. So the Pentagon helipad has 2 aircraft. We occasionally operate with more than 2 aircraft. So we will hold at Glebe Road. However, we won't hold at Glebe Road because that's 400 feet. Pilots would request Chalk 3 to hold Zone 5, and then I could come up to 1,000 feet and maintain clearance and for noise abatement as well.
Okay, so you'd split up the flight then for the holding?
Yes, that's correct.
Mr. Dressler, can you talk about VFR holding with the non-military operations?
Sure, it's a standard helicopter piloting maneuver. Whether it's commercial flight standards that are turns around a point or orbiting, a VFR hold would be perfectly normal for all of our operators.
And is this something that the pilots request or usually only execute when given a clearance to do so by ATC?
I've never heard of a pilot request it. In the medevac case, it would be very abnormal for us to do so unless tower requested some kind of sequencing and spacing. Yeah, it's not normal in any airspace, but it's a normal flight maneuver that is a standard flight maneuver, not even a non-standard flight maneuver.
All right, thank you. That concludes my line of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. McKinney. I'd like to piggyback on a couple of questions that were already asked, including the holding here. Mr. Allen, would holding a helicopter at Haines Point possibly have an effect on a runway 4 departure?
Yes.
And if you added multiple aircraft helicopters holding at Haines Point with no distinct holding pattern, could that affect it even more?
Yes.
Okay. Could holding at Haines Point increase controller workload?
Yes.
Why?
Not only depending on what the configuration and your departure and arrival sequence is at the airport, adjacent to it, there is Joint Base Anacostia Bowling. There is the Eagles Nest, and there is South Capitol Street Heliport in that immediate vicinity, as well as there potentially is at time helicopters that have landed at Fort McNair, which is just north of Haines Point. So if any, well, as you can tell, there's 4 or 5 different heliports in that immediate vicinity, as well as an airport.
Thank you. And is DCA airspace set up to hold aircraft or helicopters?
No, there's nothing dividing.
Okay. Would it be fair to say if you were holding helicopters or aircraft, it could increase risk to your operation?
That's a fair assumption.
Okay. And if you did have to hold a helicopter, would it be fair to say holding outside of the airspace or outside of that 5-mile ring may be more efficient for the safety of the holding, but not necessarily more efficient for your operation of getting them through the airspace?
What was the question?
So during post-accident interviews, we talked to a couple controllers about holding specifically the helicopters. And they indicated to us that if they did want to hold, that sometimes they would hold them out further. But you were talking to Mr. McKinney about if that is the case, that the helicopters, the timing may be different. Can you expand on that a little bit? Like how would holding them further away help the operation, or would it not help the operation?
I mean, depending on what the volume and complexities are in the immediate vicinity of the airport, holding them further away, while the volume's still there, you reduce the complexity. I mean, the other option to keep, traffic moving is offer an alternative route.
Okay, thank you.
Alternative route. I know that the military has specific routes that they want to take in case of emergency, but damn, once again, I've said this from the beginning, and I will never change my opinion. I will die on this hill. I don't give 2 rats' ass about the Army's training maneuvers. The military, when doing operations, should never put civilian lives at risk. Ever. I will die on that hill.
You, Ms. Chendi, I wanted to go back on something that we were talking about with TBFM, the traffic-based flow management system that you guys are hoping to implement soon. Do you know if your arrival rate will have to be reassessed for TBFM to be successful?
Yes, and yes, we are in the works to reassess the arrival rate.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to switch to the facility level. So DCA is a level 9. Mr. Fuller, can you explain to us what is a facility level?
Excuse me. A facility level takes into account complexity, traffic volume, things of that nature, and it primarily sets the pay level for that facility.
Okay, thank you. And can you elaborate on how facility level determination is made?
We have a national validation team as part of our CBA.
Get your hands off my camera.
That monitors traffic levels on a rolling, I believe it's a rolling 12-month period every month. And facilities that dip below a sustained traffic level for a certain amount of time. And again, I would have to break out the contract to look through those specific times, would then be downgraded or upgraded based on that continuous level of traffic.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Fuller, is strictly numbers of operations, is that the only thing that is taken into consideration when?
No, there's a complexity formula, and it's way too complicated, to be quite honest, for me to repeat, but it is a documented formula for how they determine a facility level.
Okay, very good. Mr. Jarvis, would you be able to speak to us about your understanding of the history of the DCA airport traffic control towers downgrade from a level 10 to a level 9 as well as their appeal to the downgrade?
Yes. It's my understanding that the helicopter traffic was reassigned to be counted into the Potomac Tracon count, which then allowed them to be upgraded. And that being the case, then the numbers for DCA were now much lower. And after a period of time, probably 1 year or so, they then were downgraded. And that's kind of how the process works. And it is the validation team that works together and verifies and validates those numbers.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Allen, can you expand on your knowledge of the situation and what occurred?
On this topic, I actually don't have a lot of knowledge on it. I was not in management or in a union role, and I was just aware of the hearsay, and I had no direct knowledge other than its occurrence.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lehman, did you want to speak to this at all?
Yeah, I really haven't been involved too much. I do know some of the things that went into it that we actually helped DCA.
Mr. Lehman, can you pull your mic closer?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Some of the things that we did in the past to help DCA with their traffic count was to start tracking the start putting full data blocks on their helicopter traffic so that they would get a count for this. I can't remember how many years ago. That was about 5 years ago or so. But the actual traffic validation formula has been around for a long time, somewhere around the year 1998 or 2000.
Okay, thank you. Can anybody on the panel speak to the appeal that DCA made on this topic?
The only thing I can say is that, from my understanding, they were below the traffic count for a level 10 facility for about 25 months before they were actually downgraded. Once they got downgraded, they filed an appeal based on their perception of the helicopter traffic count. The appeal board heard their input and unilaterally decided that information was known, accounted for when they did the validation, and rejected their appeal. That's the process, and again, that's in our CBA.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Fuller, in our request to the FAA regarding facility level changes, it was stated that the only difference was pay, and there was no difference in staffing between a level 9 and a level 10, and therefore it was not considered germane. But isn't it true that it would change the number of support staff that would be authorized for the facility?
No, it would not. So our staffing for support staff, they're district resources. We have what you call an under the controller workforce. In the past, support specialists or support managers were assigned to a specific facility. That was all they would do. They would only work for that facility. And what we found is all of our larger facilities had all of the support staff, and our smaller facilities had no support, no assistance. In 2018, we realigned those resources to be district support managers and district support specialists. And there are 9 support managers, and they're authorized 36 currently staffed with 35 for the Washington district. The district general manager or assistant general manager can assign those specialists to support whatever facility they need. And so if DCA needed a specific level of support, they would assign those resources there. It could be Dulles tomorrow or Manassas the following day.
Mr. Jarvis, I know we're going to be talking about external compliance verification and internal compliance verification tomorrow. But do you have something that, when you were at DCA in the capacity that you were, do you have information about the district shared services that could be available for DCA and how they were or were not assigned to DCA?
Yes. There was a change in general managers. There was a general manager, I could say a name if you'd like, it doesn't matter, that retired, and a new general manager came on board. That general manager came from a smaller district, kind of a smaller, tight district where things were working quite well from what I understand. And also in their move to the Washington district, a quality control manager was put in place. And just from my perspective, they lacked quality control knowledge and therefore would be ineffective to that district. There were a couple of staff specialists that were assigned at Potomac. There were no, those staff specialists were never relocated to any other facility that I'm aware of on any type of regular basis. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Allen, would you like to expand on that?
Pre-accident,
Think long and hard. Long
the
and
shared
hard.
services concept existed, and I would say it was utilized to an extent, but it was, for DCA specifically, I don't know that it was very fruitful in the concept, or the intent wasn't being met. I can say post-accident, the shared services model has greatly changed in a positive light.
Thank you. We appreciate that. So we were talking a little bit earlier about the pay, that the pay, there is a difference in pay between a level 9 and a level 10. Mr. Allen, can you explain a little bit why the pay disparity between a level 9 and a 10 is a significant impact to the tower beyond the personal financial type reasons?
The difference between a level 9 and a 10, I believe, in the pay scale chart is the greatest difference that exists. Whenever the facility has vacancies to fill, being at a lower pay band or a lower pay rate is something that everyone considers when they're moving to a location. DC, obviously, historically, and the general area is quite expensive to live in. So that is one thing that, controllers, whenever they're requesting reassignment, or if there's a bid open or what have you, is one thing that they, consider is what is their quality of life going to be like when they arrive.
Were you at the DCA Airport Traffic Control Tower when the downgrade occurred?
Yes, I was.
Can you please explain what were the greatest impacts to the facility as the result of the downgrade?
The immediate impact was any controller or person arriving after the downgrade went into effect was at a lower pay band than the staff that had remained at the facility. So they were doing the exact same work, it just at a lower pay scale because our pay was retained.
It sounds like when
Since the downgrade, has there been a notable difference?
It sounds like when employers will get rid of an employee who's been there for a long time because they have to pay them a lot, and hire someone less qualified or at a lower pay scale because they don't have to pay as much. It sounds like, I'm sure there's more to it than that, but that kind of sounds like the gist of what is happening. And a lot of this stuff is like not juicy, and this is where shit gets boring. But like, this is the behind the scenes crap that nobody wants to tell you about until something happens. And then it's like, oh, look, we have all this drama and all these changes and things that people don't like. And all of it. Yeah. You have all this stuff going on behind the scenes. Air traffic control is a shitty job, and I don't know why anybody wants to do it. I was talking to Mr. Squid a couple weeks ago, and he was like, I wouldn't want that job. Mr. Squid works in aviation. For those of you who are new here or have been living under a rock, he has worked in aviation for 20 years. There's only a very short time when he has not worked in aviation, and with all the stress that he has in his job, or could have in his job, depending on what happens on a daily basis, some days seem like a breeze, and other days seem like I would love to be a fly on the wall. So yeah. That being said, I asked him a question, and the first thing he said to me was, I wouldn't want that job. It's too stressful for me. Well, damn. I wouldn't want that job either. For me, it's not so much that the stuff is boring, it's that they hide so much of it from the public that it has to do with safety and security. Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that has to do with safety is boring. It's not the fun sound bites and the gotcha moments, like although that the math ain't mathin' was a good sound bite, and I still need to to clip that and make it a short. But a lot of the heart and what needs to be said is not fun. And that's trial watching too. Not just hearing watching, but like, it's a lot of the heart of the information and where things come out is when it gets boring. But here we are. But I think I am going to cut it off around 4:30, so we got about 15 minutes, and then I'll do like a final thought, and then we'll try again tomorrow.
And the ability to recruit air traffic controllers, obviously you just said with the pay, but what has happened to the level of experience of the controllers that are now accepting that bid versus what you had as a level 10?
Yeah, previously, prior to the downgrade, we would get folks at a same level facility, maybe even a higher level facility, that could still retain their pay within the same pay band. And you bring that experience level that they have working higher volume, higher complexity operations, and they can bring that to the table in that capacity. Post downgrade, there has been challenges with the NSEP process and the available candidates that are on the list that can come to DCA. Typically, they're from lower level facilities trying to make their way up if they want to select DCA as an option, just due to the cost of living here and the difference in pay.
Thank you. Mr. Fuller, can you describe or explain what NSEP is, please?
It's the process we have for employees that would like to move to another facility as per the CBA to voluntarily request a move. And by CBA, they can move up to 3 facility levels above where they currently are. Of course, you can always do a downgrade. So for a level 9 facility, the lowest you can be an ERR into that facility would be a level 6. If you're a level 10, of course, the lowest would be a 7. I will tell you that from our studies, we found no difference in the amount of candidates between a level 9 or a level 10 facility. Like Mr. Allen said, it's about quality of life, area you want to live in. If you're coming back home, Dulles Tower is a level 9. Teterboro Tower is a level 9. DCA is a level 9.
And you used a couple terms that we need to define as well. What is CBA?
I'm sorry, it's a collective bargaining agreement, and an ERR is an employee reassignment request.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Mr. Allen, what was your minimum number of staffing required on the night of the event?
You're referring to the shift guidelines?
Yes.
7.
Thank you. Yes, on the basic watch schedule. Thank you. Do you know if you were in compliance at the time of the accident?
Yes, that shift was at guidelines at or above.
Thank you. What are the minimum required shifts? The minimum required positions to be open in the tower at the time of the event?
Local control, assistant local control, ground control, clearance delivery flight data, and OS slant or operation supervisor or controller in charge.
Okay, perfect. And do you recall if the supervisor had needed to open helicopter position that night? Were there enough staffing to do so?
Yes, we earlier in that shift, we had conducted training and they were debriefing at that time. So those resources could have been reallocated from debriefing and training to operating the position if needed.
Okay, thank you.
If needed. If
Mr. Fuller?
needed. It sounds like it was freaking needed. Well, go get the charger. Baby, you have to leave it on the charger. We haven't figured out that you can't just let it charge for a minute and pull it off the charger and expect it to work. But it's one of those situations of like if needed. It sounds like it was freaking needed. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it sounds like it was needed because you have people, you had 67 people who lost their lives. And like, for me, the agitation that I feel over, and usually I try to be pretty good at controlling my emotions, but like, you have 67 people, or including 11 or 12 children, who lost their lives in this because of a massive miscommunication, people not following directions, people not following orders. So to say if needed, you just basically dismissed the families of those 67 people. by saying we could have brought them back from training if needed. If needed. It sounds like it was freaking needed, and it sounds like you always freaking need those people when you're really supposed to have 9 people in there, and you only had 7, and you were down to 5. Like you. Oh my God, my level of contempt for that dude right now is like off the chart. There you go, baby. You have to leave it on the charger though. Like my absolute level of contempt right now for him is massive. Cannot explain to you right now how absolutely, like, he seems like a decent person, but like, dude, maybe being an operations manager just ain't for you. Maybe that's not the job for you. Maybe you should be reassigned.
A few years back, the Federal Aviation Administration and the National Air Traffic Controllers Association introduced the National Training Initiative. Can you explain what that is and how it is implemented?
So the National Training Initiative is exactly what it's an initiative to increase the amount of OJT, on-the-job training hours for developmental controllers. It's a goal that's set based on where they are and what particular phase of training they are, to ensure that we don't have employees that are in a training phase, to be quite honest, just sitting around the facility and not actually getting productive training time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Allen, can you explain to us how the NTI has changed the process of training at the tower?
Pre-accident, there was a push by our district management to meet or exceed the NTI goals.
Okay, can you explain to us what exactly were or are the NTI goals? What does that mean?
Yeah, if you're not certified on a position, the goal for the week is 15 to 18 hours of training. And then if you are certified, the goal is to get to 12 to 15 hours of training per week.
Mr. Fuller, is there guidance provided to the general manager on how to implement the requirement for the NTI hours per week across the board? Or does each district have the ability to change the way that they implement them?
So the NTI is like it's national. The goals are the same for every facility around the country, and it's not general manager or facility manager specific. We have a process by, if there's a facility that for some reason can't make their goal because they had a number of employees out on leave, or they've sent employees away from the facility that would normally be training, they sent to a course in Oklahoma City, we call impediments. They can enter those impediments for tracking, and it explains why they didn't meet their NTI goal for that particular week.
Mr. Allen, could you explain to us the way that your former general manager asked you to use the implements per week?
While the written policy was that it was a goal or a goal to hit those hours, there was pressure to meet or exceed the NTI numbers, whether there was impediments or not.
It was stated by several we interviewed that as a rule, the impediments were not accepted at DCA Air Traffic Control Tower, meaning that though being on leave for 2 days of one of the weeks, they may have, even though that is an impediment to be on leave, and it would be accepted as the way that the NTI is designed to be, that the Washington district did not accept these. And they said that you need to make up the hours on the other days of the week. Again, this is coming from the interviews. This caused the trainees and even on-the-job training instructors to become strained to the point that you've had training withdrawals from the facilities. Some of these withdrawals were from controllers that had been certified journeymen at other control towers, if I am understanding that correctly. Is that accurate?
Yes, we did have multiple people withdraw from training.
Can you please explain to us the difference between your training and that occurred prior to the NTI? Give us a brief synopsis of how long did it take to train? Were you able to get the trainees through in a different amount of time than what the National Training Initiative in its current form, how it works at DCA?
I can speak to my training program at DCA. I arrived at DCA in 2013. And during that time, I was able to be certified in just over a year, even with being furloughed at that time, and there was sequestration at that time for government employees. There was never an inability to train. I could train 3, 4, 5 hours as much as I wanted every day. The facility was fully staffed. I could go as fast as I wanted to go in the training, and I did so.
So I'm not sure if it was you, Mr. Allen, or one of the others that we talked to after the accident, but there was a discussion about how the mandated weekly training hours for all those in training status had caused total training hours to rise, which sounds good at first, but can be another deceiving metric in some cases. The bigger question here is, did it increase the number of meaningful value-added training hours overall?
At DCA, we did adjust some of our target times for training, in particular ground control.
If I may just add a little data to the conversation. So prior to the National Training Initiative, DCA took 1.37 years on average for certification. Post NTI implementation, it's down to 1.24 years. Now, while that may not seem like a significant amount, that is also not taking out the time from the COVID pandemic where we didn't conduct any OJT. If we excluded that time, they're less than a year for certification now. DCA also has an 89% success rate for trainees there, which is significantly higher than most facilities around the NAS.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, due to the requirement of having the 12 to 15 hours per week implemented on the building for the trainees, do you feel that the hours that they're getting per week are meaningful hours? Meaning, do you have the ability to not train for a certain amount of days because that trainee, or not days, but sessions, or, say somebody has already gone through this basic level of traffic that's available to them on this hour of the workday, and you guys need to wait for a certain amount of traffic to have meaningful training for that trainee so that they don't essentially waste that hour of training, which adds to the overall hour?
There is an impediment that, staff, or not staffing, the volume of traffic is not commensurate to their level of training that can be input as an impediment.
Okay, can you explain a little bit about the pushes and the requirements for the trainees and the demands of the trainees to learn how to do the pushes and what pushes are?
Yeah, so pushes, I guess, is a slang term that we use whenever there's compacted volume, heavy arrival demand, departure demand, or a combination of both. They occur multiple times throughout the day. There's one in the morning. There's a couple in the morning, couple in the afternoon, couple in the evening. They all vary in what the demand is. And with that, whenever a person is training, you initially should build them up to being able to work the push, and then you get to a point where they work the push with less input, less guidance, to where they're working it to their own, and then they can operate that position under that volume of traffic.
As stated previously, pre-accident, the impediments were not accepted by the Washington District, and that is correct?
It's not that they weren't accepted. You can put them in, but you would receive a discussion on meeting the hours.
That woman
And
on the
with
left
that,
looks annoyed, visibly upset.
What were your
annoyed.
observations of what having to meet those impediments did to the controllers, both trainees and on-the-job instructors, with such things as fatigue, morale, etc.?
Yeah, there would be times where the supervisors and stuff would continue training. They would do they would have a trainee work a busy session, come back, work another busy session, come back. Stuff like that may have occurred depending on the trainees' RDOs. The bulk of DCA's traffic is Monday through Friday. And if a person in training has days off during the week, we'll say Monday, Tuesday, for example, then they only have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to see busy traffic, but you still need to meet the hour requirements. So then on Saturday or Sunday, they may be beyond working a slower level of traffic, but the intent was to get to at least the minimum hours. So then they would just be working those hours where traffic was not at their level of training.
So I understand what the intent of the NTI is, and that's just making sure that we're utilizing every available time slot for training and that it doesn't get a situation where a trainee is left behind. Prior to the NTI, how do you feel your controllers were coming out of training? Do you feel that they were able to see as much as possible? I understand that you can never see everything, but how was your comfort level of trainees coming out of training pre-NTI?
That was a long question for.
To be honest, I'm not sure when pre-NTI was.
Right. Okay, so before the MTI was implemented by the FAA and NAPCA.
I don't even know when that was. I can't recall. We've been doing NTI forever, I think.
Okay,
Like.
but we're okay. That's fine.
That was a really weird way of asking that question, but that was also a really weird way of answering. He could have said, "I didn't work here before NTI, so I don't know." Why do government employees feel the need to like? I don't know. It's not just government employees, but you feel the need to spend 20 minutes asking a question that could have taken you 30 seconds. I just, for some reason, like they're talking too much and not saying enough. It's a lot of roundabout, double speak. It's just weird to me. Like these people, I'm so sick of looking at these people. I want to hear the people in the back talk. I'm really sick of the FAA. If you haven't noticed, I hate them.
Do you find that with the NTI, you are having to go to training review boards more often? And can you explain what a training review board is?
The training review board is when a person in training has not successfully completed the program, whether they've reached their allotted target hours or the training team feels that with the remaining hours they can no longer, or they will not be able to certify. And a training, so the supervisor will suspend that person's training, and in accordance with the training order, that triggers the training review board, where an independent panel from that training team will review, ensure that the FAA provided every opportunity to that trainee to be successful. If not, they will provide a recommendation on what can be done better and potentially offer additional hours, or they can say the training team did everything possible and recommend suspending the training altogether. I know during the NTI, in particular on ground control, we ran into scenarios where I believe it was 7 out of 8 trainees went to a training review board. I'm sorry, during NTI. Did I word that wrong?
Why?
There were various reasons associated with it. The volume of traffic had changed. They weren't being as exposed to as many things. We were meeting the NTI and therefore we were utilizing the hours at a more rapid rate than we had previously. So we were just getting to the end of hours and they were not proficient enough to operate the position on their own. And we would attempt, if applicable, to give them supplemental hours in accordance with the training order. And if that was not successful, then we went to a training review board.
You mentioned there were certain things they weren't exposed to. What does that mean?
For instance, if you begin training on ground control, let's say in spring, and it goes into the summer, then you've never trained on de-icing. If you trained on ground control in the fall and went into the winter, then you've never seen swap season. You may have never seen an emergency where an aircraft is, a landing alert 1 or 2, and all the fire trucks have to come out and stage and stuff. Now we can talk about that. We can review it. But you want your folks in training to experience firsthand the most amount of things that they can experience to get that level of proficiency even higher.
Okay. Others indicated during the interviews that due to the way that they felt the impediments were utilized at DCA with direction from the general manager, that it caused meaning that they had to get the hours pretty much no matter what. That was the goal, was to meet the hours. Has this caused the facility to potentially certify controllers at a lesser level of readiness because you're reaching your max hours? You're confident that they will certify, so you certify them and say, well, we'll just keep an extra eye on them for a while. And in retrospect, do you feel this may have happened with either the local controller or the assistant local controller in this case?
We would not certify anybody that could not operate the position.
Very good. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can I add just some information? I think it's relevant. So the NTI officially kicked off in 2019. It was suspended from 2020 through.
Okay, so Alan was there before NTI. So how does he not remember what it was like before NTI? If it kicked off in 2019, how does he not remember? Does he have that short term of a memory, or is he just dumb or it's just something's hinky, something stinks, and I just can't put my finger on what. Jeffrey, yeah, the non-answers through obfuscation and misdirection and passing the buck, and yeah, I'm getting so fed up with these 4 people. Well, not so much Mandy, because she really hasn't said anything, and when she tried to, Nick Fuller told her to kind of gave her the "shut up if you know it's good for you" kind of look. But the Fuller and Allen need to there's just something stinks, and I just can't put my damn finger on it, but I don't like it, and I'm getting sick of listening to these 2. I want to hear the guy in the middle, not this guy right here. This guy's the medevac guy. I like his answers most of the time because he throws the FAA and ATC under the bus, and the Army. But I want to hear the guy next to him who is from American Airlines, who is the American Airlines tower guy. Because each airline has their own operations tower. You'll see little mini towers on each concourse. That's so the airline operations can keep an eye on their planes. They can see what planes are coming in. Not as much as ATC from their high up tower, but the airlines and their operations can keep an eye on their gates, and they can see where things are going and coming and keep an eye on everything and their ramp and all of that. So I had a friend that worked, actually I have friends, plural, that worked in airport ops and the operations for the airline I worked for. But team you, George Lucas. Oh my goodness. How are you, JKD Buck? We were talking about Cincinnati earlier. All right. But on that note, guys, I am going to get going. I have to finish all this laundry and figure out what I'm doing for dinner and that such. And get this little's going to be throwing some temper tantrum soon, but because she won't leave her iPad charged or in the charger for more than 5 seconds, when it dies, is dead. So we're going to have a rough night with this little one wanting her pad and mommy saying no. And hopefully mommy and daddy are on the same page today. So thanks, JKD Buck, for doing your thing. Pick up some squid merch. I will be back tomorrow with this. Hopefully we will be getting to the better part of this panel and hearing from American Airlines, because I really, really, really want to hear from American Airlines, because they are, at the end of the day, American Airlines and PSA Airlines are the ones who lost people. I really want to hear what they have to say. Also, this weekend, I'm looking into grabbing some documents in a certain case. I'm looking at some updates, but Saturday, you might want to hang out because we might talk about a certain evasive person who we talked about earlier, but we might want to talk about some documents in his transgressions. On that note, I will see you guys later. Pick up some squid merch. I have some derailed merch because I'm good at that shit. I'm good at derailing myself. On that note, have a great day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.